We are 1 week away from early voting, starting for the special primary election in Prince George's County. At the top of the ballot is the race for county executive. 11 people want the job, once held by Angela Alsobrooks, who is now in the U.S. Senate. Well, we've invited all the candidates to join us live in studio so we can talk about the issues impacting residents in the county. Today we are joined by Democratic candidate Ron Hunt. He's owned nightclubs, he's hosted local radio shows in the area, and he wants to be known, quote, that he is not a politician and you are self-funding your campaign. Thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you so much.
Tell me why you want this job.
Well, when you see things that are completely out of control, you feel guilty at a certain point. I was asked to run back in 2010. I said no. I was asked to run after Rashawn Baker. I said no. But this time, it was crazy when you think that we can be $200 million in the debt. There's another $100 million that they spent frivolously, and that's $100 million over budget. So these things are wrong. Besides, our teachers are being assaulted, our seniors are not being taken care of, and more.
Let me pause you right there. $200 million is the budget deficit you referenced.
That's correct.
Where are you seeing those numbers?
Well, the way I heard those numbers were out of Miss Braveboy's mouth. She said we were. She said we were 200 in a deficit, and she also mentioned the few schools that should have been built for the 100, and said we were 100 over.
Okay.
So
I just want to clarify for our viewers, according to my sources on the council,
170.
170. They did mention the original budget deficit was roughly 120 million. The 170 is if they do nothing, if no cuts are made, which we do know that won't be the case, right? But my point of saying this is because that 30 million gap from 170 to 200 is a large gap, and I want to make sure we just point out those numbers correctly. But is your plan to cut your way to balancing the budget? How would you balance the budget?
Here's what we have to do. We have to stop frivolous spending, because everybody's not talking about that. You have people that are making decisions, like we just said, to spend money on these buildings that there's no purpose to spend this money on. See, here's what we're going to constantly get back to while I'm speaking with you. Prince George's County has 4,500 vacant properties that they control in Prince George's County. And if that's the case, there's no room for a blueprint. I'd rather give that extra money to the teachers. Here's why. The blueprint comes up with $1.6 billion, and then in 4 years, $4.1 billion. Whereas if we took each building and we refurbished it is one thing, but if we made it brand spanking new, we're going to spend a fraction of the cost, and we're going to get more for our money and save money.
Well, you're saying something really interesting. I want to dive into this real quick because as of 2023, PG County officials estimated, to your point, 4,500 vacant properties that the county was in charge of, that they owned. They do not have an organized list of these properties. The council had discussed making one, maybe making a registry for the property. So my question to you is, you know, at the time, the county's Department of Permitting, Inspections, and Enforcement was who was enforcing the upkeep for that. But there was only 4 people in the department handling it. Would you expand it? What would you do?
I'd have to redo everything, and here's why.
Okay.
What you just said is very important. Isn't it funny how you just said that they recognize and they identified these properties, but they never did anything about it? Isn't that something? Why wouldn't you do something about it when you could take care of our seniors in those buildings, you could take care of our young moms in those buildings, you could take care of the veterans in those buildings? Because everybody's talking about affordable housing for our seniors, and I call them signature citizens. They copied my seasoned citizens, so let's call them signature citizens. Nobody wants to be called old, but here's the joke. They're talking about building modular homes. That's more money. We have these buildings here. We want to put our seniors in there for one reason. Now they'll be attended to by professionals downstairs. There's no steps for them to climb, and they can be checked on under some type of umbrella compared to be spread all over the place. One more thing. Their health care is so important that we can do there also, and I'm bucking to get free medicine for them too. Okay. So that's the situation. Then the next thing, and I'm going to just finish up, we're talking about our moms and the veterans doing the same thing for, but are homeless. No more homeless shelters. Why would you do that? That costs money. That makes the neighborhood ghetto. What we want to do with those extra buildings that we have, there's so many, is go ahead and bring them in, because everybody's homeless for a different reason. Some are down on their luck, some have drug problems, some have mental issues, and you know what has to happen? You bring them in and not only rehab them, Get them to making money again so they can go back out, and that works.
I want to go back to the budget just briefly here, because what services would you propose cutting? Again, we have this giant budget we have to balance.
You're gonna love it. You're gonna love this. There's no cutting of budgets. What we want to do is have everybody, they have to come at the end of the year and bring their budgets to the table and we go over it. Why not cut the budget to the point of saying we get rid of your program, and your program? We have to analyze, which they don't do. Let's say a budget for, let's say Parks and Planning, just hypothetically, gets $100 a year. But they only spend 20 of that $100 for the year. What we do is, instead of giving them $100, we give them 50. Now we save some money across the board. And we do that with everything, but we investigate what we're giving. We just don't arbitrarily just do these numbers and then expect it to work.
Well, my point is, how do people know why to vote for you? Do you know what I mean?
Why to vote for me? Because I'm just like you. Here's the deal. I'm funding my own because there's a problem. Everybody else is taking everybody else's money and says, wow, you see how much money they have in their account? Here's the joke. I put $9,000 every time I do something because I'm going to spend my money not frivolously. So here's what I'm saying. They're only practicing, you're going to love this, they're only practicing for what they're going to do if they get elected. They're going to frivolously spend your money some more because it's not their money. And here's something else that you got to think of. They have to care about the people first, not themselves. That's the idea.
Let's talk about taxes. Prince George's County has one of the highest property tax rates in Maryland. County residents complain about snow removal, trash removal. The storm in January was a disaster. How are you going to change that?
Okay. It's called planning, okay? Now, here's another joke about those taxes. You hear Miss Braveboy, she pops up, we're gonna cut your taxes. That is a lie because of what you just said. We have all of these deficits. There's no way you're going to get your taxes cut. But wouldn't it be great if you could do something great for our senior citizens? And you could look them right in the face and say, you worked all your lives. You own your home.
You going to plow their streets?
Watch this. It's better than that. No property tax for them.
How does that work?
How does that work?
Yeah.
If we can straighten out all these budgets, stop the frivolous spending, use what we already have as far as those 45, because I told you we're going to keep coming.
How can we straighten out the budget if you're not going to tell me what you want to cut?
I'm doing that right now.
Okay.
With those 4,500 buildings that we have, we don't have to have all of these extra things that cost us money because we have the use of those buildings right there. Okay. And by the way, it just doesn't stop with senior living. This is also schools, government buildings. We can refurbish these things so they're brand new.
Let's talk about police, because public safety is a major issue. Of course, that requires personnel. We know that there are Prince George's County trying to fill 300 vacant positions within the police department.
I got something for you. You're going to love it.
Please tell me.
You're going to love it. I worked in Southeast Washington, D.C., and everybody out there that knows me knows I own the largest nightclubs in the city. I was the youngest club owner. But what they didn't know was from 1987-88 until 2007, I worked very closely with the community. I was part of the CAC, that's a Citizens Advisory Committee to the community, and we had a citizens meeting on one side and a citizens meeting on the other side of South Capitol. So this was Arthur Capper in Carrollsburg, and this was 1D1D1 in Ward 6. But here's the joke. Our police right now, they're janitors. Why are they janitors? Because they sit in the strip mall parking lots waiting for a call, and they come, but when they get there, they're just cleaning up the mess that happened. Now, here's how I figure we can bring more police to the table.
Please.
All the municipalities have these police officers. We need to merge everybody into one. That's first.
You want to consolidate?
I want to merge every Greenbelt police, Hyattsville police. Everybody turns into
New York City.
That's where I'm from. You must know.
Well, so
that's what they did with the transit police, and they did that with the New York police, and it worked out great. You know why? Because they were always getting mixed up in the subway. Somebody was getting shot back then.
So this was back in the 90s. 95 is when New York City
Yes,
consolidated. And to your point, it's the largest municipal police department in the United States. Here's where I'm going. Okay, expand on this for me, because when you think of PG County, right, part of the charm with the police departments individually is that they know their communities, right? And so when you think, how would you do this?
I was getting to that.
Political resistance.
Wait a minute, I was getting to that.
Carry on, go.
What you just said was the key word. It's called community policing. Okay. In order to have community policing, we got to get them out that parking lot. And that's why I said we merged all of the municipalities together. Now we have more police. We will attract more police like that because I'm going to tell you right now, if you come into a police force that's looking like it's Mayberry, nobody wants to come because there's too many Barney Fives there.
How do you get the council on board with politically?
Okay, now everybody's going to be mad at me.
Right.
I was not Prince George's County executive when I was there in Southeast. I don't want to call names. That won't be good. The council members will do as the community asked them to do. When I didn't have a council member, look at this, county executive, and I was just Ron Hunt, and I owned 5 clubs down there because nobody knew I owned all those clubs. They only thought I owned 1. Whatever the community wanted, I made sure they got. If a council member got in my way because they said I had too much power, I told them, you will not be elected the next time you go up. And they smiled at me, and I said, you smiling? I didn't care how much money I had to spend for them not to get there because the community comes first. Those nice older women, I cried. I could tell you some stories.
Sure.
But if you go to my site, Ron Hunt for pgcounty.com, and go down to the bottom, you will see real endorsements from chiefs of police, council members that I work with closely. This wasn't we shook hands at a dinner. It has to be community.
There'd be buy-in from the police community and from.
And by the way,
okay,
your name. Let's say your name is Sally.
Sure.
And let's say my name is Mr. Kennedy. And I come on your block, you say, hi, Mr. Kennedy, how are you? That's not happening right now. And if the people are doing that with the police, it slows crime down because the kids are like, no, let's not get out of line. Mr. Kennedy's coming.
We've got more topics we got to get to. Thank you
Sure.
for answering my question.
Sure.
62% of Prince George's County's budget is dedicated to public
education.
Correct. My question is, we still have performance issues here. Are they allocating enough to the budget in terms of education?
Okay. It's time not to spend again.
Really?
It's time not to spend so much money. We keep the 62%, but we use it wisely. Here's the problem. Our teachers are getting a bad deal now. You see, I get very passionate when it comes to these teachers. These teachers are heroes. These teachers should not have a second job. These teachers should not be assaulted in the classroom. Now, if we're going to talk about it, let's talk about it. If I'm in charge and a kid hits a teacher, let me tell you what happens. Because that 62% that you're talking about means something here. But you know what? It doesn't mean anything when a teacher's going home with a black eye. It doesn't mean anything when a teacher doesn't have a raise. It doesn't mean anything when they're scared to come to their own classroom. That's why that 62% has to be used a little differently. And we're not including, if I'm not mistaken, the federal funds that are coming in. And you know what Mr. Trump is doing with that right now. We're not doing the grants that are coming in. We're not adding all that in there. Plus, there's marijuana sales that they're supposed to give back to the community. When Baltimore gets it, it's supposed to send it back to the community it came from. There's so much money, I'm telling you, that's not even being set up here for these poor teachers. And these teachers come first, I swear. And let me tell you something else that's going to make you laugh. If you have teachers and you have your kid, your child, go to that school, you expect some type of responsibility for those teachers to take to protect your child. But there's one more thing I'm going to say that's not working for me. Those vouchers. And yes, everybody's going to be mad now too. Why would the state or the county give vouchers for kids to go to private school when we could give that money to our teachers and we can give that money to our school system, public school system?
Let's talk about,
Sure.
We're running out of time.
Sure.
Let's talk commanders, because they are,
There's no reason to discuss it.
Yes, there is.
Let me tell you why.
They're
not going. They're not. Let me tell you
Tell me why you say that.
No. They're not going to stay in
How are you
Prince
gonna
George's
keep 'em?
County. They're not going to be kept. They're not. See, one thing a couple of my friends saying, and whether you guys know it or not, all my clubs were down there where that stadium is right now, where the Nat Stadium is. Now you see, Prince George's County messed up. Let me tell you what they did. They didn't do the infrastructure around the stadium to attract people there. Miss Sweat says it. Mr. Cruz says it. I say it. How do I know? I'm in entertainment. I'm in entertainment. Now let me tell you something else. If the Commanders go, which I think they're going,
right.
Okay, and they're gonna say, well, I'm gonna try to keep them here.
Right.
I think they're gonna say I'm trying to keep them here because they want to get a vote. I'll be honest and I'll be truthful. You're always gonna get the truth out of me. Here's what I would do, because we're not gonna have them. I now would use that stadium that's there to my advantage.
For?
Oh.
What would you put there?
From April.
And you can't say the Ravens because that
No.
was
No. From April to October, we booked that stadium out and we built the infrastructure around it. We got people flying in from all over the world to see different acts, different shows, different everything, because it's right there and it's right there by the Beltway. People are just don't think football. Right now, when you say the Commanders, everybody's heartfelt. I get it. But we're talking money here.
Okay.
So we have that there. Let's make some money with it. Just don't sit there staring at it.
So your point, let me say this back to you. We're running out of time.
Sure.
If they do go, which all signs are indicating that that's the case,
Yeah.
you're not going to cry over it.
You can't.
You're revamping.
You have to take, exactly. You have
Okay.
to take the bull by the horns and say, how can we make the most money? And see, somebody like me thinks like that because I'm not a politician. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you about anything. It's the worst thing we can do. That's why this Saturday at 6 p.m., If you come to ronhuntforpgcounty.com, you'll see me on the screen. I have about 30 questions that people have sent me that they want answered. So I'm going to answer those questions with my heart. And remember, I told you once, I am not a politician, nor do I want to be. They're corrupt and they're liars.
Mr. Hunt, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here today.
You're the best. Thank you so much.
We appreciate it.
All
Thank
right.
you. All right. And mark your calendars, everyone. Early voting for the special primary begins February 26th. It will end March 3rd. Election day for the primary is the next day on March 4th. And tomorrow at 4:30, we're going to be joined by Democratic candidate Marcellus Cruz. We'll be back after the break.